by and large saying we all need to turn down the rhetoric. So let's be serious about where this violence is coming from. Of extremist violent attacks in America, extremist violent murders, 76% are from right-wing extremists, 4% are from left-wing extremists. I condemn that 4%, but we also need to be honest about, as a nation, about where this violence is coming from.
So with that opening statement from Rep. Seth Moulton on CNN, welcome to the RocaNews Show, Episode 2. We're very excited to be here again. And thanks to all of you who subscribed yesterday on day one.
Yeah, so by the way, we kick off with that segment not to endorse it, but to just expose how ridiculous the reaction from mainstream politicians have been. And I can't help but be shocked that Seth Moulton is stirring the pot with a statistic like that, which I would love to see the footnote. It doesn't seem to align with the high-profile incidents we've observed, certainly recent mass shootings. But it's shocking to come from Seth Moulton because he was picketed, hounded, doxxed by left-wing activists when he dared to say after the November election that he didn't want his daughters getting run over by trans women in sports. So he said he had a quote like that, and then the left wing came after him. They picketed him, and they kind of went crazy, and he wrote something about how we need to lower the temperatures of the country, and then he goes ahead with that statement, which, again, if that's the data, which, again, it's not. It all depends on how you define this stuff. But just an absurd reaction, and one of the many that we're seeing right now.
Yeah, so we got a bunch of stuff we're going to go through today, and some news that's not Charlie Kirk related we'll get to after. Jair Bolsonaro, the former right-wing president of Brazil, was just found guilty of a coup attempt. Tucker Carlson's interview with Sam Altman, in which they talked about the OpenAI whistleblower who allegedly killed himself, and Tucker Carlson put Sam Altman on the spot on that, which is interesting. The trial began for Ryan Ruth, who tried to kill Trump at his golf course last summer. We'll get into all those stories, but first we want to go with some of the reactions here on the Charlie Kirk killing and what we know about it. We've got a few facts here bulleted on our doc. We'll just run through quick. Tui, if you want to kick us off on that.
Yeah, sure. So here's what we know about the shooter, who still is not in custody as of recording, although there's now $100K reward for any information that could lead to his arrest. But what we know about this shooter is this. He arrived on campus at Utah Valley University at 11:52 a.m. He went up the stairwell onto the roof. There's footage, by the way, of him scurrying off the roof after the attack. He jumped off, deposited his gun in the woods, wrapped in a towel and a screwdriver, which police say he may have used to take the stock off the rifle to try to conceal it. And they found foot, palm, and forearm imprints, and he's identified as a male. They recovered the rifle, which was a high-powered bolt-action rifle, and they say they are trying to trace the ownership of the rifle. And one very interesting report from the Wall Street Journal is, and this goes to show how news coverage matters because we're going to pull up an alternative headline about it, but the Wall Street Journal reports that transit and anti-fascist ideology was written on ammunition in the gun. Now, there's another way people, here's the Wall Street Journal's coverage of it, ammunition and Kirk shooting engraved with transgender anti-fascist ideology. But then CNN had a slightly different cover. They said this, Frost.
So they're calling this cultural phrases. Billy, you want to play the clip here, and we can see how they're framing this.
Made virtual various references to cultural issues, right? And we don't know what they mean. The investigators don't know what they mean. They found some initials written on some of the ammunition, some of the parts of the rifle. And again, they don't know whether this is a motive, whether this refers to the reason why this was done. But again, they spent the night looking at those initials, trying to match it to other pieces of evidence, social media accounts online, to try to see if they can try to decipher whether this is the person who did this or whether this was a reference to.
So just one thing. So they had not released what was written there yet. However, it is confirmed that there was stuff written on the bullets. And according to the Wall Street Journal, which does have one of the more factually rigorous newsrooms, they said it's transgender and anti-fascist ideology written on the ammo. So speaking of ammo, I mean, this has been ammunition for all sorts of politicians, people on both sides. You do have, most people across the board. I don't condemn violence. You kind of hear that whole thing. And then you kind of dig into it. But all the people to me who are saying, I don't condemn violence, but he said this, and essentially they're saying he kind of deserved it. You're seeing this all over the place. And
by the way, I just love how vague that is, scrawled with cultural phrases. Like, what could that mean?
When I think of a cultural phrase, I think of like Merry Christmas or like,
I know.
Happy birthday.
Or like Gen Z, like send it. You know, like what could cultural phrases mean? Just an absurd headline, and it would be less infuriating if it weren't so predictable. But to your point, the reactions across the spectrum have just been really disappointing. And of course, social media will tend to amplify the most absurd reactions. So you're going to get clips from comedians in Brooklyn who mocked it, or this one guy who's leading "We Got Charlie in the Neck," a chant outside, I believe, the White House. So you're going to get reactions like that. But we're seeing this from some significant people, from ringleaders on both the right and the left, from people on the right who are the language you're using is revolutionary-esque.
Yeah, so we'll get into that. But real quick, Billy, can you pull up the photos of the man they're saying did this?
Yes.
So the FBI put out photos of the guy here. There's Billy in the prison.
That's me in my dog cage.
Yeah, there we go. We got the...
Oh, hold on.
Hey, photos of the FBI. Let's see what their logo looks like.
All right, give me 1 second here. You guys can fill the noise with some
Well, we have a beautiful day in New York. Actually, the sad thing is, like, we'll get to sort of a 9/11 tribute in a sec. But yeah.
So this is who they're saying did it. This is all we know. I mean, no other information has been provided. They said college-age male. I guess he looks younger in this picture. And the other one, he looks a little bit older. But in any event, FBI, call 1-800-CALL-FBI if you have tips, they're saying. And, one thing that's interesting is obviously the reaction to both sides on this. We want to show you two comparisons. One is Steve Bannon. Steve Bannon, who's the kind of MAGA mastermind who runs Real America's Voice, which is the network that hosted Charlie Kirk's show. And in fact, yesterday, Steve Bannon, he hosts like the 10 a.m. to noon segment. At noon, he always, every day, gives it to Charlie Kirk. So he gave it to Charlie Kirk, and then an hour and a half or 2.5 hours later, Kirk was killed. But so this is just a unique perspective, I guess, on kind of how some people on the right are responding to it. Bill, you want to play the clip of Bannon talking about this?
I guess I don't.
Big tech has interfered. They would rather you not see it. All right, here we go.
Oh, you think I got kids? You think I want to be here? This is what you have done to our country.
Exactly.
And what comes next is on you, too.
And we're not going to back off an inch. Anybody think if you're going to back off, then this is not for you. Charlie Kirk gave his life for a country. He's on the battlefield of political combat, okay? And they cut him down with an assassin's bullet. Let's be blunt about this. They cut him down with an assassin's bullet.
And
Tell me again.
One thing to note here: Bannon always uses this kind of militaristic language. I mean, he was in the Navy and whatever, but he always talks about politics and this battlefield, that. It's on both sides though. The governor of New York, Kathy Hochul, she recently said this is war.
Yeah,
that was her quote about politics.
Billy, if you want to go put that Matt Walsh tweet. So Matt Walsh is a super influential podcaster. He's at the Daily Wire, and he tweets the following. I know some of you want to do the Kumbaya thing. You want to say the celebration of Charlie's death is only happening on the fringes. I'm sorry, but that's just not true. They jeered and heckled him in Congress yesterday. The left wants us dead. That is a mainstream view. It just is. It's the truth. They couldn't be any clearer about it. Stop lying to yourself, face the facts, and act accordingly. Now, listen. First of all, what he's referring to in Congress is, I believe it was Lauren Boebert, and when House was in session, she basically said, I think she called for a prayer for Charlie.
An out loud prayer.
An out loud prayer. And then people on the left kind of clamored and shouted no. And then Anna Paulina Lunez, I believe, she said that, you all did this. So there was a very heated moment in Congress. But to be clear, I get what Matt Walsh is saying, that there are some people. It is not, I would not say the core of the left is celebrating. I know this tweet will do well. It'll get great engagement. It'll rev the base. People are pissed off right now. It's giving people kind of on the right what they want to hear. as disturbing as some of the reactions have been, as insensitive as some of them have been, as tragically mislabeled as Charlie Kirk was, even Hassan Piker, prominent Twitch streamer, referred to him as an extremist. As wrong as all that is, when I think of my liberal friends and when I think of like core liberal figures online, many have given what seem to be sincere tributes. Ezra Klein in the New York Times published a very nice op-ed, and he didn't even do like the whole preamble of like, as much as I hate Charlie and all this and this fascist, he kind of was straight up like Charlie was doing what we should be doing, which is engaging with the opposite side.
Dean also, I don't know his last name, the very popular
Dean Withers.
Dean Withers had a very nice
Crying.
tribute to, yeah.
Who's Dean Withers?
Yeah. I think he got famous from a Jubilee video, and it may have been the Charlie Kirk one. But either way, Dean Withers is now the popular kind of liberal streamer. He was part of that. I don't know if you know, like Harry Sisson and Parker and that group of like young Democrats.
Billy, can you pull up here? What was the clip we had? Hassan Piker, the Hassan Piker one. His reaction to this was interesting because today he comes out and he calls Charlie Kirk an extremist. That was not his initial. I mean, I'm sure he thinks Charlie Kirk is an extremist. They're on absolutely opposite ends of the political spectrum. But his reaction here, I just thought was interesting to watch earlier today or last night.
Deseret is reporting he was shot. Okay, Deseret News now reporting Charlie Kirk shot at Utah event. Charlie Kirk, this is a breaking news story, will be updated. Charlie Kirk was shot at an event at Utah Valley University in Orem, Utah on Wednesday. Bystanders report seeing Kirk shot. Jesus Christ, dude. Oh my God. Bystanders report seeing Kirk shot near his neck during a Q&A with students. What the is happening, brother? Oh! Dude. You hear a shot, you hear the crack of a shot, and then you hear his head just crack back right after. And I think what the people are saying is correct, that he might have been shot in the neck. Oh my God!
So it's also worth noting. So he's, I'd say, the closest thing to a left-wing Charlie Kirk. I mean, I don't think his impact is as big, but in terms of like really influential online, whatever. But he was supposed to debate Charlie Kirk next month. I think he said a month from this week.
It's surreal. I mean, I think the thing that hit me more than I expected, which, you know, not that anyone was expecting this, but I guess seeing that video and then realizing that Charlie was all over every social media feed. He sort of grew up in our generation. I remember being in college when he was kind of the face of the whole debating students on campus movement. He's just sort of omnipresent. And he was, some people have said it this way, he was one of the good ones. I don't mean that ideologically. I just mean that in terms of his approach. Like Charlie Kirk had some lines that were more polarizing than I believe. I mean, like he did say, he made a lot of generalizations about the left that I feel were destructive, 100%. But I mean, in terms of his demeanor in every personal review you hear about him, he was not one of the bad ones. He was not like this aggressive guy. If you're going after him, that is a terrible sign. And I know some people might have the thought, listen, there are fringe lunatics who are going to commit acts of violence like this. But what is so wrong is it feels like the rhetoric caused it or enabled this or justified it in the minds of these lunatics. And this is not a one-off event. Trump was gone after twice, and those are the people who got either to the woods next to him on the golf course or to literally shooting him at a rally. Yeah. There may have been many, 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 many more. There have been, you know, shootings at schools with political motives. So, I mean, the rhetoric and what's causing this is just disturbing. That is the problem. The reaction, much of the reaction has been utterly absurd.
Yeah, so the thing I've noticed a lot of people sharing today on social media, it's different clips and quotes of him and stuff he said that they said was racist, misogynistic, whatever. Now, obviously, you can debate all that stuff, and we're not endorsing it by, you know, mourning the death of the guy. That being said, again, it's this point. It's like you got to separate the two. Yeah. And the whole point is if the person you disagree with can't say whatever they want safely, well, then you can't either. And it's just a matter of how the amount of rights that your opponent has, that's the same amount of rights that you have. And if people are going to kill them for that, they're going to kill you too. And just one other thing, just to note. So when we did this last night, we were saying that in our lifetime, you know, there hasn't really been political assassinations in America. People commented it and rightly pointed out there was the assassination of the Minnesota House Speaker back in June.
Mm-hmm.
Billy, can you pull this up? Because this is something that
the state senator.
the state senator, yeah.
No, both were attacked.
But one survived. The senator survived, and the House Speaker was
and
killed.
I think the husband of the House Speaker died too.
John.
The state senator was injured, and then the
Melissa Hortman.
rep and her husband were killed. That's right.
Yep. Which now, this is also a 100% egregious tragedy. And the guy who, what's weird about each of these things is you don't see much after the fact.
I know.
With this one in particular, I feel like it really didn't get the media airplay that, like, obviously the Charlie Kirk one is getting. I think there's a few reasons for that. But just to be totally clear, I mean, what happened here, by all indications, it was a right-wing evangelical extremist who is a bit mentally ill who did this.
Well,
probably extremely mentally ill.
Frost, one thing about this too is, you're spot on about how you hear little about the killers after the fact. And I know there's also the dueling concern if you don't want to glorify them too much to inspire more. But the weird thing about him and also Ryan Routh, whose trial is underway now. This is the guy, not of course, Crooks, who shot him at Butler. This is the guy who was like hiding in the woods outside of Hole 6 at Trump Golf Course in Florida. What's weird about him and the Minnesota shooter is they both had these weird stints abroad. And I hate to like stir the conspiracy pot, but it's not normal that Ryan Routh volunteered to fight on behalf of Ukraine and was over there. And it's not normal that the Minnesota shooter had this security company in Africa.
In the Congo.
And it was just like, okay, that's not normal. I mean, maybe that's just who killers are. They have crazy backgrounds, but
what both of them have in common, I mean, beyond the fact that one is, I mean, again, you don't know, but it seems like one's a left-wing extremist who tried to kill Trump last summer, and then one's a right-wing extremist who killed this Minnesota politician in June. They're obviously extremely mentally ill people who have very, very strange backgrounds. But just to go through some of the stuff about this guy, Ryan Routh, or Ruth, R-O-U-T-H, who's going on trial. Trial started today. So last summer, September 15th, that was exactly a year ago, at Trump International Golf Course in West Palm Beach, Florida. Speaking of which, we have a new video out from Palm Beach.
Shout out.
Tui hosted that one.
Billionaire Capital.
Check that out on the RocaNews YouTube page. But he staked out the area for 12 hours with a loaded rifle, scope, and obliterated serial number. A Secret Service agent spotted and fired at him, leading to his arrest as he fled away. He left a note admitting this was an assassination and a list of Trump's appearances. So he's now on trial. Now, the thing that's so bizarre about this is he was in Ukraine. In 2022, he traveled to Kiev to recruit foreigners to come fight for Ukraine against Russia. And he subsequently became like a semi-prominent media figure. He was interviewed by Newsweek, AFP, and the New York Times. He appeared on News Nation to talk about Ukraine. Like, first of all, what does it say about the media? The fact that they're interviewing this dude who's who's totally insane. But also, it's extremely bizarre. So he was there out recruiting people to come to Ukraine. He said in Ukraine, he told the New York Times he was recruiting Afghans to come via Pakistan to Ukraine, Afghan soldiers who were overthrown by the Taliban. Just really, really weird. I feel like we've never gotten proper answers for what went down there.
Yeah, it's not good for people who are in this conspiracy debunking business. I'll tell you that much. And frankly, we find ourselves in those waters a lot. In our daily, premium newsletter, Read the 66, a lot of times we look into these sort of, theories that are circulating the internet, especially right-wing spheres. And we often just give them serious treatment, and the verdict or the evidence suggests that they're often outright wrong. But I'll tell you, when you have a track record like this, and also as you point out, he makes the media rounds, and with flattering depictions from the old clips I had seen, where he's like, "Who's this brave guy?" That's just like a weird thing.
Billy, can you pull up the just for like a few seconds? I want to see who is he. Pull up
this one
interview
right
with him. Yeah.
So this is, this is probably after. Who is this?
This is 2022.
Yeah, this is with Newsweek.
Ukrainians and the rest of the world are caring.
It's not on the screen there, Bill.
And generous and unselfish and take care of one another. And it's just a matter of we need to stand up for that. So, we feel the pain of one country's failure and their conflicts, and we enjoy the successes of other countries that are doing good, and we all work together. And for some reason, Russia does not grasp this concept that we're all one unit.
The irony, of course, of wearing an American flag is you choose to remove one of the two main candidates off the ballot before the next election. But that's Ryan Roth. And I'm sure we'll want to go back toward the end of this on Kirk stuff, but thought it might be good to also get into another sort of a moment that was kind of buried yesterday because of obviously Kirk's assassination, but Tucker Carlson's interview with Sam Altman. So this is not so much of a distinct news event like Fed raises interest rates, but it was a fascinating exchange. And I think you may have more luck on Twitter for that clip.
So for those
Yeah.
who don't know, obviously Sam Altman, OpenAI CEO, and so on. When was it? August 2024. This guy, Suchir Balaji, he was 26. He resigned from OpenAI, citing ethical issues. In October, he gave an interview to the New York Times in which he told them ChatGPT had illegally trained its models on copyrighted information. He was later listed that New York Times is leading the biggest lawsuit against ChatGPT over copyright infringement. The Times listed him as a witness, was gathering evidence, and then a month later, he was found dead. And the official autopsy ruler assumed and found no signs of struggle or foul play. His parents didn't believe that. They hired a private investigator, and that private investigator had an inconclusive autopsy and said there were signs of a struggle and did not endorse the suicide ruling. So Tucker pushed Sam Altman on this on the podcast and went very visible.
Yeah, here's
Very
a clip
violent.
from that. It's pretty
camera
stunning.
It just didn't make any sense to me. Why would the security camera wires be cut? And how did he wind up bleeding in 2 rooms after? And why was there a wig in the room that wasn't his? And has there ever been a side where there's no indication at all that the person was who just ordered takeout food? I mean, who orders DoorDash and then? I mean, maybe. I've covered a lot of crimes as a police reporter. I've never heard of anything like that. So no, I was even more confused.
This is where it gets into, I think, a little bit painful, just not the level of respect I'd hope to show to someone with this kind of mental illness.
I totally get it. It's
people
just his
do commit
family
suicide without notes a lot. Like that happens.
For sure.
People definitely order food they like before they commit suicide. Like this is an incredible tragedy, and
That's his family's view, and I think it was a murder.
This is just one clip. So, if in the full exchange, it's awkward, but oh my goodness.
Do we want to play this clip here where we have apparently Altman's face realizing it's an accusation?
That would be great. Yeah. I mean, it's worth watching. It's kind of an unbelievable exchange.
All right, let's see this.
So you look at that, how the authorities could just kind of dismiss that as a. I think it's weird.
You understand how this sounds like an accusation?
Of course, and I certainly. Let me just be clear once again. Not accusing you of any wrongdoing, but I.
All right. So
He's just asking questions, the Tucker special. But in this case, I got to say, the case invites questioning. I mean, that is a bizarre thing. And Tucker says that the victim's mom had reached out to him to cover the story. And the thing that shocks me the most here is that Sam Altman agreed to do an interview with Tucker. Now, we actually wrote a recent deep dive on how Sam Altman's making the podcast rounds everywhere from Theo Vaughn, the comedian who's got a massive podcast, to Cleo Abrams, a science influencer. And he's also, there's now an OpenAI podcast, and they're clearly prioritizing it. So, like, Sam Altman's getting in the public eye. But I'm like, dude, Tucker does not like what you stand for, and he's pretty good at these viral confrontations, from Ted Cruz to now this. And I'm like, did he do his homework? This is not a friendly. Long story short, that was just an interesting moment. And I got to say, you know, I think it's the kind of story we like to shed light on sometimes, where a major, incredibly valuable company has a bizarre death like this, and it doesn't really make the media rounds. But to be clear, to suggest, if you're not thinking, oh, it was a murder and Sam Altman was behind it, I mean, by any traditional American standard of justice, that's a little presumptive. Like, there's no evidence. Let's not go there. But I do think this case deserves some scrutiny.
One thing, we have a contact with Roca who does work with whistleblowers, and what she's told us is that a lot of time whistleblowers do themselves. However, it's inflicted from the outside. And what she said by that is, when you come out as a whistleblower, companies do everything they can to discredit you, to reveal dirt on you, and even if they're not necessarily trying to make someone themselves, it has the impact of making them feel extremely isolated, alone. It destroys their careers. It destroys them financially, getting sued and all this kind of stuff. And a lot of people get pushed to the brink of doing that too. So, you know, I think there's a lot of people think, I can't remember the one she spoke about.
It was the Boeing case. Was
it the Boeing case where she was like, it was pretty obvious to her. She had intel. She knew essentially that this person was not murdered. However, the guy had been put into such an extreme hole through the backlash to his whistleblowing that it was devastating for him and led to his suicide. And I think that happens more frequently than I probably think.
That would actually be a great interview on the show, is to just get her take on it. So we should do that at some point. Bill and Frost exactly. Right. That, she said far beyond just the Boeing whistleblowers, that this is, her entire practice is working with whistleblowers, and this happens frequently. So that was another viral exchange, and also buries his Tucker's documentary, 5-part docuseries on 9/11, which, spoiler, it's probably not going to take the traditional narrative on the tragic day. And of course, today is the 24-year anniversary. And without going into platitude, cliche, cheesy territory, I wish we could have a little more of the national unity we experienced after the 9/11 tragedy, the sense of patriotism, of unity. I know Matt Walsh does not want us to have a kumbaya moment, and I don't think kumbayas are long-lasting. I think it is more about like a fundamental value shift that I think the fringes need to experience, that the media needs to incorporate into their coverage, and big tech needs to somehow tweak their algorithms to not just bring up the crazy shit all the time. And by the way, on X, you have Elon Musk calling like the left as a whole evil, and that this is what they did. And it's funny because that seems to fly in the face of all their anti-woke claims about how individuals aren't guilty for whatever group, ills they're associated with, whether that's
the U.S. passed it, Billy. The left is the party of murder.
The left is the party of murder. 753,000 likes. That's a lot of likes, is it not, for us?
I get that many on a regular basis.
yeah, exactly.
One message to your point of like, there has to be some kind of come to Jesus moment or whatever, which is very hard to imagine happening. But a Roca reader sent me this morning in response to your story on Charlie Kirk, and he said, "Man, he said it's just my personal biases." He said, maybe it's just my personal biases, but man, I feel like this country is losing its shit, which I feel like is definitely the way a huge number of people feel. Yeah. And it's very, very concerning. Now, maybe one reassuring fact is it's not just this country. And let's just touch on Brazil real quick, because we have this.
It's bad here, but let me tell you where it's worse. Let's feel better that way.
Brazil is interesting because I think their politics are not so dissimilar from ours, despite the fact the country is very different. Mm-hmm. It's a lot poorer. It's a lot whatever. In some very basic ways, it's similar. Mm-hmm. And one thing is, you've had Jair Bolsonaro, the kind of right-wing former president, who lost the 2022 election to Lula, the left-wing leader. Jair, who's kind of Trumpy with his whole style, kind of big social media personality, et cetera, who was also almost died in an assassination attempt when he was campaigning. They had their own January 6th in Brazil, when he lost the election. All these people protested. They said he actually won. They ended up storming the courts and the presidential palace and stuff in Brazil. Long story short, years-long legal battle for him, and today he's found guilty of attempting a coup d'etat in Brazil. So this even matters here a lot in the U.S., though, because he's a close Trump ally. Trump has put sanctions or put tariffs on Brazil over this, and now this is still ongoing. And he's extremely, extremely popular. In terms of the polarization, Brazil is a very similar thing to here. You have a lot of people who really, really like him. They view him, just like Trump, as like the one-way forward, charismatic, anti-leftist. And now he's going to be going to prison for a long time, it looks like, if not for the rest of his life, because he's not a young guy. I think he's probably around 70. He faces up to 43 years in prison.
Now, I don't know much about the legal system or intricacies in Brazil, but I could also see this being a flashpoint issue for them in their next election where, someone might promise to release him. I could just see this also. But, I mean, what's your initial reaction to it? I think you're exactly right to think of it in the context of Trump, and I do wonder how he'll respond to this. Because he likes some of his international pals. But were you surprised by this? Was the writing on the wall? I know, yeah.
To the extent that I know about it, I think the writing was on the wall. I think the way it works in Brazil, and the reason a lot of people are kind of skeptical about this is there's not a big separation between who brings the charges and who renders the verdict, which is to say the Supreme Court has a role in both. And it's very different than here. In the U.S., you'd have the DOJ or whoever bring the charges, and if they appeal, maybe it gets to the Supreme Court, which renders a final decision. In Brazil, it's all a very similar body. I'm not going to get too into the specifics because I'm not 100% certain on how it works. But yeah, it's a huge thing, and Brazil is definitely a country that matters a lot. And I think just more than that, in terms of the U.S., this gets back to the same exact thing with Trump, where I think even a lot of people in the U.S. were very scared of what was going to happen if Trump were actually disqualified from the ballots that they tried to do before the 2024 election. And now people on the left are scared about what Trump's going to do, to his political opponents, and if he's going to try to go after them. It's this whole use of whether I don't want to weigh on the Brazil thing. I don't know the facts. I do think when the criminal justice system merges with the political system in a way that you have courts deciding who's going to run for office or not, it's very obviously it just pours lighter fluid on extremism.
I totally agree. So it'll be interesting to see what happens there. And obviously some people on the left especially pointed out that as we talk about political violence and ratcheting up the rhetoric, they sort of point out January 6th happened a mere 4.5 years ago, and the president pardoned everyone who was convicted, everyone involved, everyone who's charged. And so they would say that it's kind of sad that we've devolved a new system where that doesn't happen. Obviously, that's its own can of worms. Frost, I think it's solemn. It was already going to be a solemn day. Every time, especially living in New York, like you sent some pictures to Billy and me last night of the two lights going into the air at the One World Trade, the Freedom Tower. And it was just beautiful. I mean, I got to say, being in New York and every 9/11 anniversary, it's both tragic, horrifying, thinking of the loss that day, reviewing some of the old pictures, but at the same time, here's Frost's picture. It's really incredible.
Oh, right. Give me a second here.
Lula. He found Lula down. No, it was, we're having a tough time finding the picture, but the point is, it was just a really, it hits harder here, but I also do feel a little bit of that, end of miracle sense of patriotism in the wake of 9/11, George Bush's pitch, his bullhorn speech, the way New Yorkers responded, people who loathed him kind of rallying around the flag in that moment. And I hope that better angels prevail, especially on the left right now. Actually, well, really very much on both sides, but I'm saying it in terms of like them not treating people like Charlie Kirk as the enemy and condemning this full-throatedly, and I hope better angels prevail on the right as well.
I certainly hope so as well. And now that Billy's got the picture ready, here you go.
And believe it or not, we got the photo.
Let's go.
Beautiful pic, Frost.
Beautiful.
The thing I didn't know, it's on the lights, I believe, are on top of the parking garage.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I've always wondered where they do this.
Yeah, so they're okay. I had no clue.
Because the One World Trade is actually like the memorial. I always thought they shot it out of the memorial, but no, the memorial's like a quarter of a mile away. One thing I always like to do on 9/11, not to sound, one thing I like to do on 9/11.
Yeah.
No, to go back and watch the footage from that day. I think it's necessary. I mean, because people just, even now, it's become a political thing, conspiracy thing. Not to even comment on that. Just the fact is, all these people died, and it's like we have certainly. I think we probably all have friends in New York who have parents who died, and it's not made up. You can discuss what happened that day, but the fact is 3,000 people died, and it led to a lot of problems for the world and our country after that. So
And
it's a
I
tragic
know,
day.
dude, I remember with all three of us talking about this. One of my least favorite lines, especially on a day like today, you realize it, is people in channels like CNN were saying that, every day during COVID, it was like a new 9/11 happened because at one point that many people were dying a day. And as tragic and horrific as COVID was, the symbolic significance of 9/11, the attack, the visceral shot it was at a city, going after, towers people looked at every day that were symbols in many ways of New York's financial prowess, the economy, life there, the city itself. Yeah. There is no comparison. The horror, the tragedy, the way it shakes people. There will never be another 9/11.
Do you guys remember where you were when it happened?
Oh yeah, sent home from school in D.C. because there's the Pentagon attack. I don't know if you remember.
Yeah.
Yeah, crazy.
Yeah, I was second. You were probably kindergarten, right?
Yeah, kindergarten. Exactly.
I was second grade, and they didn't tell us in school. I got out of school and I asked to go over to a friend's house, and my mom was like, "No, you can't. I have to tell you about something that happened."
My Uncle John was working at the time. He's at Merrill Lynch. He worked in finance, which is right next to the Twin Towers, and just the stories about how cell service died and everyone panicked and he had to hop on a ferry, hitchhike. But the unity people showed in that moment was so heartening. Everyone who rushed to the aid that day, obviously, you have the heroic stories of all the fire department workers, the policemen, everyday citizens who rose to the occasion, people in the towers who showed just unbelievable levels of heroism, but also in the wake, just everyone coming together through victim funds, through even that day, like people just driving people they'd never met.
Billy, can you pull up the George Bush first pitch here?
Oh yeah, that's
one of the greatest stories with Derek Jeter telling him to throw it fast.
Yeah,
it's a classic.
Can't bounce it.
Wait a second here.
Gosh.
Yeah, at the World Series. This is not George Bush endorsement by doing this.
Or is it?
There we go. This is not the full clip of it. Just a beautiful strike. Angel Hernandez would have called it a ball, but every other ump would have called that strike. Fired.
One thing that was interesting last night was... Oh, wait, go back to the full clip. The full clip there is great. You had it right there.
All right, give me a
last night, the Yankees had a Charlie Kirk tribute at their game.
Yeah,
and
that was surprising.
One of the skyscrapers in Midtown, they had an American flag going on it, which I thought was interesting. Not what you normally see. There was a Ukrainian flag up there for a couple of years.
Was there?
Yeah.
That was very... Yeah, here's the...
Right there. Do the full clip.
I hope they have the Jeter
The Jeter,
commentary in here.
that was a great
I think that
part.
one's like 2 minutes long.
I think it might be that one.
All right, let's go again.
Ceremonial first
Oh,
pitch.
no, you're right. Billy, is that the first
No,
time?
you guys tell me how to do it.
I'm dead wrong about a clip. Well, I don't know if there will be distinction like in the like thumbnail, whether it's Jeter or not. But
And please welcome the president.
The reaction here, though.
Of
Oh my
the United
goodness.
States.
It feels like an American like fairy tale now. Yeah, it feels like fake.
All right, so it's what we just watched.
And it went downhill after that, unfortunately.
Yeah.
But the moment was wild.
Now show mission accomplished. Yeah, I mean, the reason, in my opinion, that moment is more special. I mean, it's what W did is awesome. That pitch was amazing. But the more special moment was Yankee Stadium reaction.
Yeah,
like
totally.
that's not exactly the young Republicans of New York convention there, but they rallied behind the flag. And
Well, back then it was different though. That was when Giuliani was mayor.
that's very true.
New York was not nearly. New York was not necessarily a liberal city at that time at all.
No.
Not like it is now.
Yeah.
In any event, anything else we should cover here, Bill?
I think we've got it covered, don't we? We got Bolsonaro.
Yeah, we got the big ones. I mean, it's funny. Well, it's not funny, but like the stories we pulled, like we were going to do one on the child obesity findings from UNICEF that there are now more obese kids than underfed kids worldwide. So, yeah, and the U.S.
Some would say that's progress.
Some would say that's progress. Some would also say the U.S. needs to lower its numbers. So does Chile. There are a couple other developed nations that have U.S.-esque obesity.
Chile does?
Chile. Yeah.
Chile. Okay.
Chile. Not Chile, bro. Chile. Wow. Well, thank you, everyone who tuned in. I also like how we literally gave no introductions. We just sort of expect people to know us, but we're the three founders of Roca.
Smash that subscribe button. Smash it. If you want
Mr.
more.
Gorbachev, smash and subscribe.
That's good.
But yeah, and thank you everyone who tuned in yesterday. Kind of blown away by 16K views on the first ever episode. Obviously, it's our brand new channel.
Didn't promote it on the story on Instagram or anything, too.
Dude, why'd you bring that up? It was organic.
Well, thank you all for watching, and we will be back here tomorrow. See you then.
Thank you, New Roca Nation.